Seeds of Hope. Today I thought it would be fun to propagate some herbs in water. The herbs that I have today are going to be rosemary, oregano, mint, and thyme. And I picked these from my garden, but you can also potentially propagate herbs that you get from the grocery store if you want to try to save some, root it, and then plant it out. I harvested this today. If you are not able to propagate the same day that you are harvesting or picking everything, you can just put it with a damp paper towel in a plastic bag and it should last in the refrigerator for a little while. You can like zip it a little bit but keep some air flow going in there. I haven't really propagated a lot in water, so I'm kind of curious to see how this will work out. I've propagated other things or grown other things from cuttings, so we'll see how it works. So let's take our plants out. I harvested pretty good sizes so that I can work with a little bit of it if I have to, because I'm going to be stripping some of it, cutting some of it. So this is our mint, and my garden's a little shady, so things tend to be a little bit longer because they're looking for sun. So this is our mint, oregano, thyme, and rosemary. So when you are getting cuttings, you want there to be new growth. So that's kind of like the bendy, kind of softer parts of the plant. If it's really hard or like woody, it's less likely to root out, from my experience. And also too, there's tons of ways to do things. Other gardeners might find success in other ways. So definitely if you're interested in this, there's tons of information out there. This is just kind of my own little propagation journey in my own garden. So we have our plants ready. I have some little mason jars with tape on them and some water. I only have 3. I know I have 4 plants, but I'll just put 2 in one and label them both. So we have that. I just have a marker to mark on the jars the name of the plant and the date, so I can kind of gauge how long they've been in the water. And then I just have a little extra water just in case I need to fill anything up. So let's start with the mint. So I'm gonna, kind of curious. What you want to do is strip the leaves that are, whatever you put in the water, you don't want there to be any foliage, because if there's leaves or foliage in the water, it will decompose and it'll rot, and you don't want that. Every little place that you see that there is a leaf, that's a nodule or a node, and that potentially could create roots. So that's what you kind of want to submerge. And I'm kind of interested, I think this is a pretty long piece. This one's better, but I think we're gonna keep this node here. I'm gonna cut it because it feels a little bit long. And then maybe I might take off this second one so that these are 2 opportunities here for there to be root growth. And then I'm gonna keep this top bit, and I'm gonna need to add a little extra water so that second node is covered. We'll see. This is a bit new to me. I usually propagate things directly in soil, which also you can do. Same kind of principle. You strip the plant. Any part of the stem that's going to go in the water, you don't want there to be leaves. This is a bit long again, so I'm going to cut it. But now it still has 2 nodes or 2 points where roots can grow, and all of those are submerged. So you can see, and then there's no leaves in the water. So that's my mint, and that's, you can do a couple, and then, you have a better chance of something rooting. But I'm just going to put mint and the date, which I'm going to be honest, I don't know what date it is. They're all smushed together at this point. So it's the 15th. Whoop. Boom. So that's ready. You want to keep it out of direct sunlight. You can keep it in the house. You've shocked the plant because you've picked it, you took off leaves. It's in a little bit of a shock, so you want to help it kind of rebound. So keeping it out of direct sun or extreme heat or extreme cold will kind of help reacclimate it or help it kind of come back from all of the cutting and stripping of the leaves. And you see how my plant is nice and upright, the leaves aren't drooping, it's not sad. You want to propagate with plants that are bright and kind of awake. Once they start to droop or kind of lose their form, they're not likely to kind of come back as easily or as strong. Okay, so there's our mint. Let's do oregano. It's the same kind of structure, again with the nodes. Boop, boop, boop. I think I'm going to try. So there's one node here, one node here. So I've got 2 nodes. I'm going to have to fill that up a bit. And then there's a lot of nodes on this one, so I can probably get 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it smells so lovely. Put those in there, and then I'm just going to fill it up a little bit. Making sure I'm not putting any of the foliage in the water. So those are good to go. Again, they're nice and bright, they're upright, they're not drooping. And then we're gonna put oregano. And the date. So I'm gonna keep those separate because they have a very similar structure, so sometimes those can get confused. And then I'm gonna put the thyme and the rosemary together because I think they're different enough structurally where, you know, you can kind of tell the difference. And you can use all of this leftovers for cooking and, oh, it smells so nice. Okay, so with thyme, it's a little bit more, it's not as straightforward as the other ones. The same principle applies if you don't want any of the foliage to be in the water. I'm just gonna take off some of these little bottom bits, maybe just kind of work my way up to a place. I don't know if you can see it too. This is pretty soft and gummy, and then it slowly gets harder and harder. And this is quite hard, and I might take a little bit of it off. But then I still have 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes, and I'm just gonna, so that's a little, the foliage is hitting the water a bit, so I'm gonna take off a couple more leaves. There, that's good. And I'm gonna do the same thing. And look, you can even, this one now could be its own propagation, and now you still have that one. So that's an extra one. I'm gonna strip some of these leaves off. Make sure and nothing's hitting the water. Same with this one, strip the leaves off, and I just pinch it and pull. That looks like a good one. So we'll put those there. Lovely. Okay, same with the rosemary. Rosemary can be very woody, like the bottom end, it can get very hard and woody. So I kind of want to take off some of this bottom foliage here, slowly work my way up and see what's left. And I mean, none of this is going to be super gummy, I don't think, but I'll make a fresh cut, put it in there, make sure none of the foliage is hitting the water. And these are a little bit smaller, so you don't need to fill them up you don't need to fill up your jar as much. That's what I'm trying to say. So pop that in there. That's not touching the water. Same thing. And again, like, there's so many little sprigs that you could pull off, strip, and try to propagate on their own. But I'm kind of curious to see if I can get this harder woody part to root. Because why not? Why not? Trial and error. That's how I learned gardening the most. So let's see. Again, just to make sure that's in the water. And I think I'm just going to do those 2 because it's getting a bit bushy here, and I don't want to crowd out the thyme too much. So there's that. And then what you're going to want to do, let's label this. Rosemary and thyme. 4:15. Okay, there's that. Again, you want to put it in a nice place without any direct sun. Should be a good kind of room temperature. And it's going to take a couple weeks, depending on your climate, depending on how hot or cold it is. You want to keep an eye on the water. You might have to refresh the water because the plants will be using that water to kind of, it'll use the water in the plant. So you want to check the water and, just top it off every now and then, making sure not to hit any of the foliage. What else was I going to say? Oh, so once you find roots, it should be, it could take 2 to 3 weeks. It just depends. But once you start to see the roots in the water, once you get a good amount of roots, you can then pot it out into a 4-inch pot with some soil, let that establish, and then you can move it up to even a bigger pot. And by the time you plant it in soil, you can start introducing it more and more to indirect light and then direct light, because these plants, when they are established and have a good root system, they need that sun. It's just now while we are propagating that they don't need direct sun. So I'm gonna let these rest and hopefully root, and then we'll come back in a couple weeks and see what we have. Hopefully we'll have some nice propagated herbs. All right, thanks for joining me today. Have a great rest of your day. Okay, bye-bye.